Hi everyone, meteorologist Joel Curtis with your Alaska Weather TV show. We've got a lineup for you today, a few long-term predictions and not a whole lot of watches and warnings, so let's dig right into it. Starting out with our warnings and watches and advisories, we have a wind weather advisory for the Yukon Delta down to Hooper Bay, also for St. Lawrence Island, the Bering Strait, and also the south shore of the Seward Peninsula. And then we have a winter weather advisory for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast up by Kaktovik, expected to be done with this afternoon at about 6 p.m. or so. So looking at our tsunami warning test, I want to get out of the way so you can see the details on this. First of all, we've got, it's going to be on March 29th, so that's tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. It will be broadcast on radio and TV stations, and remember, it's only a test, and that test word will be used a lot. Some communities may communicate with their sirens as a practice, and no weather radio listeners will hear a tone alert on the test message. So again, that's at 10:15 tomorrow on March 29th. And so looking at the spring 2023 river breakup, again, most of Alaska has had average potential. There are some exceptions, though. Above average potential for the upper Yukon River, upper Tanana River Basin, and a few areas of the Copper River. And then the spring temperature outlook increases the overall flood potential for the lower Yukon and Kuskokwim rivers when we get there. So we're going to keep an eye on that. Also, a prediction has come out for 2023 Alaska's fire season, and because of the snow melt period from when you get the snow melt to mid-June, the YK Delta is forecasted has already got below normal snow melt, and so they're going to be a little bit ahead of schedule for any tundra fires or other fires that we might have out in the YK Delta. Otherwise, the rest of the state is forecasted to be typical. So now let's look at our satellite image. Got a system moving into the Bering Sea. Otherwise, a lot of pretty good weather across the state. That old cold front kicked out, and it's well over in Canada right now. And as you can see, this system is again starting to spin up in the Bering Sea. We've got a front. It's right about through the Pribilofs or so right now, right as we talk here. And again, that system moving up, and its target area is St. Lawrence Island. So there's our today's weather map and satellite images behind it there. And as you can see, 994 millibars with a good front wrapped around it. A little bit of warm air on the east side of that system. That warm front will dissipate pretty quickly. Lots of high pressure over the state. So got some sunny skies in a lot of places. And then you can see that last gifts of snow across the Alcan on the Canadian side, and look at southeast. Boy, they've got a sunny weather warning going on over there. And so now for tonight's weather, we've got 994. It's still moving north, and that front has dissipated. The warm front side has dissipated, but then we got a whole new triple point forming about 100 miles south of Cold Bay or so, and you can see that the weather is starting to impact the west coast with snow and blowing snow. snow, and not much going on with the rest of the state with that high pressure system. On Wednesday, particularly Wednesday afternoon, the I-96 makes it just about to St. Lawrence Island. That secondary system is now developed to 1,002 millibars, right about Sitkinak Island or so. You can see some rain associated with that, but as soon as you get inland, it's going to be snow. And then for Thursday, that whole system takes over in the Gulf. It's about 987 millibars, total front wrapped around it. Some warm air is caught up in it, and so mixed precipitation for most of the Panhandle. Snow all around the system there, and snow showers out behind it, and a few areas of blowing snow. Let's quickly go through the temperatures. In the lows for Wednesday morning, in the 30s for the Panhandle, down to 8 for Golconda. 25 for Anchorage, and 15 for Talkeetna. For high temperatures Wednesday afternoon, temperatures in the 40s across the Panhandle, 39 for Yakutat, 35 for Golconda, 35 for Talkeetna, and mid to upper 30s for the rest of the South Central. For lows Thursday night, you might see 20 for Skagway, otherwise in the 30s for most of the Southeast, and 20s and 30s for most of the South Central. And then for high temperatures Thursday afternoon, we've got got into the 40s for a lot of the Panhandle, 37 for Yakutat, 33 for Golconda, and 35 for the Kenai Peninsula and for the Anchorage area. And then for low temperatures Wednesday night, for the North Slope, single digits, a few negative numbers there, and then warms up into the teens as you get down to the West Coast with that southerly flow starting to up. And then temperatures pretty much above freezing for the North Slope as we get to Wednesday afternoon, and up to 32 for Fairbanks, and 20s and 30s out there in the West Coast. And then lows again, single digits overnight for the North Slope, 18 for Fairbanks, 21 for Nome. And then for high temperatures Thursday afternoon, we got single digits along the North Slope, but well into the 20s and even mid-30s as you get further south. And then for low temperatures on Wednesday morning for the southwest, temperatures in the 20s, but in the 30s as soon as you get out over the water, 30 for the Pribilofs. And then high temperatures Wednesday afternoon. We've got temperatures well into the 30s, lots of locations above freezing, and then 39 for Kodiak, in the 40s as you go out the Aleutian chain, 35 for the Pribilofs, and then low temperatures Thursday morning, generally in the 20s for the southwest, and in the 30s as you go out the peninsula and into the Aleutians, and 29 for the Pribilofs, and then high temperatures Thursday afternoon into the 30s again for southwestern Alaska, and might reach a couple of readings around 40 and 33 for the Pribilofs. So now our 6 to 10 day outlook for April 3rd through April 7th. We've got below normal temperatures, pretty darn good chance for the whole southeastern sections of Alaska. We've got from Arctic Village all the way down to Ketchikan with the strongest probability around Yakutat over down toward Sitka or so. And we also see above normal temperatures forecast just slightly for southwestern Alaska from Sand Point all the way on up to Bethel. For a 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, above normal precipitation, a chance of that for most of the state, a few normal spots down there in the Panhandle or so. And then looking at our 8 to 14 day outlook for April 5th through April 11th, again, below normal temperatures, much of that in the southeastern sections of the state. We do see that from all the way from Anchorage down to Ketchikan, and then most of the state has got at least some chance of having that below normal temperature. As you get out further out in the Aleutians, you might see more like normal or so. And then finally, for our precipitation forecast for 8 to 14 days, we do have somewhat of a chance that there'll be above normal precipitation from Fairbanks all the way down through the Panhandle, and most of the state has really got a chance of above normal precipitation. And then out again, as you go out the Aleutians or so, you got generally going to hit normal or so. So just a quick review of our warnings and watches and advisories. We do have some winter weather advisories for Yukon Delta down to Hooper Bay, and then St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait, and also the NOAA area. So please stay safe out there. Thanks for tuning in.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hi everyone, and now for your aviation weather. Starting out with our flying weather for Wednesday morning, we've got quite an area of IFR over the Bering Sea, including the Pribilofs, down to the Alaska Peninsula. Some marginal VFR moving its way up toward Cook Inlet and up the coast toward the North Slope. We also have one area of IFR out in the Gulf. And then looking at Wednesday afternoon, the IFR has increased into the Gulf, including Kodiak Island, starting to approach Cook Inlet, also over the southwestern portion of the state, up through the Bering Strait and into Norton Sound. And then by Thursday morning, the IFR is now focused still along the southwest coast and on up into Norton Sound, as well as the northern part of Kodiak Island. And also we have some in the Gulf now, including Prince William Sound, and almost over to Yakutat. And by Thursday afternoon, the IFR is now all focused to that low pressure system moving into the Gulf. That's focused for Prince William Sound and the northeastern Gulf Coast, most of it offshore, and some areas of marginal VFR across the state. Looking at our pass conditions on Wednesday, we got Antuvic Pass at VFR. Adigan VFR, Lake Clark, and Merrill both IFR. Rainy Pass, IFR becoming marginal VFR in the afternoon. Windy Pass, marginal VFR. Isabel Pass, VFR. Mentasta Pass, VFR. Tahita Pass, VFR becoming marginal VFR in the afternoon. Portage Pass, VFR becoming marginal VFR in the afternoon. Chilkoot and White over in southeast Alaska, VFR. And then for our freezing levels, we've got, again, most of the state is at or below the surface in the morning time. You can see that the surface line runs out down through Kodiak Island and out into the Bering Sea. We have one slug of warm air that's aloft that's in southeast Alaska. It's about, about 2,000 feet, and it ramps up to 8,000 feet as you get down to Vancouver Island. And then as we look out for the south of the Aleutians, it's 2,000 feet, ramping up to 6,000 feet. So that makes our icing forecast pretty interesting as that system has moved into the Bering Strait. First of all, we have an area up by the Bering Strait, including much of Norton Sound, 4,000 to 10,000 feet for considerable moderate. Also, we have some surface of 6,000 feet along the western and southwestern capes. And then we have an area of 6,000 to 14,000 feet south of Kodiak Island for considerable moderate with the new system forming up down there. For our jet stream, we have a core speed of 135 knots. It's out of the west-northwest. It goes across the Aleutians. Otherwise, some southwesterlies becoming westerlies, 70 to 80 knots over the mainland ports of the state, and then not a whole lot of wind high over the southeast. And that wind band stays offshore as northwesterlies over there. Meantime, again, the mainland portion with the low about the St. Lawrence Island or so, not so much into the mainland portion, but we do down by Kodiak, we are start picking up southwesterlies at 40 to 50 knots, and then out south of the Aleutians, you can see that core further to the south, but 40 knots over the Aleutian Islands. And then for our 3,000-foot winds, we have along the west coast roughly 40 knots or so out of the south, and then 40-knot northwesterlies on the backside of that headed over toward the Pribilofs. Also, with that system forming up down by Kodiak Island, you have 50 knots off of Kodiak Island, and the rest of the state, not a whole lot, just a real small band of 35 knots off of Haida Gwaii. And so that sets up our turbulence. Now, first, in the morning, we're expecting some considerable moderate turbulence along the mountainside of southeast Alaska, the Panhandle, and then also down by Prince of Wales Island. Some considerable moderate, but expect that to be ending in the afternoon. In the meantime, looking at we've got quite an area all along the west coast, surface of 4,000 feet. Down by Kodiak, expect considerable moderate, surface to 3,000 feet. And folks, file a flight plan and please fly safe out there.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder with the National Weather Service, and joining us today, two more people to talk about the augmented reality sandbox. It's Alana Valaji. She's a University of Alaska Fairbanks mechanical engineering student, helped design and work on the details to make this new type of sandbox there. Thanks for joining us, Alana.
Thanks.
And Courtney Breest, she's the outreach coordinator for EPSCoR, which is the experimental program to stimulate competitive research. It's a program funded nationally by the National Science Foundation, right?
Yes.
Okay. Alana, tell us about how you changed and adapted this version of the augmented reality sandbox. It's a really cool tool.
So Gina approached us with 3 goals for this new version of the sandbox. They wanted it to be compact in a light system that could travel around the state. They wanted it to be child-oriented, so we designed the sandbox to have 3 different levels.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. You can have younger children. You can have high school kids. I guess I should say high school teenagers.
Sure.
And then we also designed it to be more marketable, user-friendly, so that this could be seen eventually in classrooms all over the place, all over the state.
Okay. And you had a big hand in this, but this was a team approach, right?
Definitely. It was a really good experience for myself, for George Stevens, who we'll see later.
One of our hand models today. Yeah.
For 2 other members who aren't here today, Cody Klingman and Austin Hunt. And it was just a really good learning experience all around.
Very good. And this is something that is part of your learning experience as well, so you get to check a box in your education.
Yeah, it's a requirement for seniors of mechanical engineering at University of Alaska Fairbanks.
Very good, very good. Well, it is a wonderfully inquisitive tool, fun to play with, and I hope to get my hands in the sand here in just a little bit. But it's also part of a bigger program, something that we were talking about a moment ago, EPSCoR, and that's what Courtney is here to tell us more about. What is EPSCoR, and why do you need a sandbox?
Well, EPSCoR, as you mentioned, is a national program. We're funded nationally, but we're actually located statewide. We're at UAF, we're at UAA, we're in Southeast at UAS, and she mentioned, taking the sandbox as an educational tool, and that's where I'm an outreach coordinator for the South Central test case.
Okay.
Our focus is on the Kenai watershed, and we are really interested in using these tools like the sandbox to interact with the students down there and get them interested in STEM and also communicate the research findings that we've been having throughout the state. Okay.
And one of those, as George and Eric are kind of changing the contours for us there from UAF to maybe something that resembles a little bit of something more of the Kenai watershed, which is one of your focuses for the study, right? And specifically looking at some of the changes there and how that impacts people and also the salmon.
Yes, it is all of our research is social and environmental.
Okay.
So we have social scientists working hand in hand with our environmental scientists. One of the things we're studying is Upper Russian Lake, and we have a researcher taking sediment cores from that lake. So one of the things we're going to use the sandbox to communicate is how the landscape changed over a long period of time, thousands of years, going from glacier, covered by glacier ice, to being filled with water. And then
that's what they're doing right now.
Exactly. So
live.
Exactly. So they're moving the water around. And then I think they've got some props over there because we're also going to go a little bit more in depth and explain how the salmon got there.
Okay.
So using
there's
these.
the salmon.
Exactly. Oh, I think there's a few more.
Yeah, we like more salmon in Alaska. More salmon.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really taking the findings from our research grant and just trying to connect with the community and translate it in a really hands-on and exciting way so people can, you know, interact with us as much as possible.
Well, sure. That makes the learning and the science real and quite literally in your face rather than just some boring black and white paper that you have to read about. This is something that people can understand better because it's visual and they're touching and feeling and seeing these changes, right?
Yeah, and get them engaged. And then outreach is a huge component, and working with the younger students, and actually even, I mean, working with the UAF graduate and engineering students it's a huge part of our grant, and we really enjoy it.
Oh, it is wonderfully exciting. And so, Alana, you were telling us that this is built to travel.
Right.
And this is built to do more things than version 1. Where can this type of project go in Alaska? And what can it demonstrate?
I mean, we were hoping to eventually get to villages that were harder to reach, that you couldn't necessarily move a whole fixed instrument to, right? You need something that can pack up, fit in your truck bed. I mean, one of the most attractive parts of this project is that this was going to be something that was used past our graduation point. You know, this is going to be something that lives in the state for years.
Right, right. Well, it looks like you're well on your way with that. So what are, give me another example. What else can this show us? We've talked about the Kenai River watershed. What's the coolest thing that you've played in the sand with? What's your idea?
Well, I definitely enjoy the props, but we also like kind of building up a giant mound, and if you put some water behind it, you can make a little runway, I guess, and you know, demonstrate the effects of the hydrology by just putting up a dam and letting it all pour right down. And so that could, I think you mentioned it earlier, you could even demonstrate the effects of a tsunami.
Right.
Or something along those lines.
So it's not just topography, but it's also hydrology and coastal surge mapping and some of the coastal changes that we're seeing here in Alaska, and seeing what the smaller changes in the sandbox might do to kind of a real effect of a slosh or a push of water up on the coast. Tsunami inundation mapping, or even glacial dam release, as some has been demonstrated before. So wow, that's just an impressive thing. That it seems like the possibilities are nearly endless with this, and probably even more ideas that are popping up in your head too.
Yeah, as we speak.
Very cool. All right. Well, if folks want to get more information about AKwx, you guys are online. You're on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. AKEPSCOR, right? AKwx, Alaska AKwx, that is. And again, you guys are funded by the National Science Foundation, so more to come from that, and a longer-term study there. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. Congratulations on your hard work there. This is really fun. And for now, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder with this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, and I'm going to go play in the sandbox there. We'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hi everyone, and now for your marine forecast. Starting out with the ice edge, we've already hit our peak, and so there is some ice retreat. It's slow but sure, and we've got some polynyas starting to form now. So let me get over to the side here a little bit. Now we've got one on the lee side of St. Lawrence Island, also a little bit into Norton Sound, also on the lee side for southerly winds on the Bering Strait, also up by Point Hope, and even up on the North Slope. So here we go, showing signs of spring. So let's start out with a marine forecast for southeast Alaska. First of all, on the outside waters, we've got 10 to up to 30 knots and seas up to 12 feet, all out of the northwest, and then 15 knots on the inside, seas up to 3 feet. And then for Thursday, the wind really responds to that low in the Gulf. We've got 25 knots on the outside and seas up to 15 feet, 16 feet off of Cape Suckling. And then southeasterlies picking up 15 to 20 knots on the inside, seas up to 5 feet. For the south central waters, we've got a lot of variable winds, around 10 knots or so, but 15 to 20 knots as you get south of the Kenai Peninsula. And then for Cook Inlet, 10 to 20 knots, seas up to 5 feet near Kennedy Entrance. And then on Thursday, really responding to that low, some gale force 40s off of Hinchinbrook, otherwise 30 to 35 knots on the outside, seas up to 12 feet. Prince William Sound, 20 knots, seas 4 feet. And Cook Inlet, 15 to 30 knots, seas up to 9 feet down by Augustine. And then for Wednesday on the peninsula and Kodiak Island, again, variable directions, generally southerly on the Gulf side, 15 to 25 knots, seas up to 6 feet. And then on the Bering Sea side, also coming around, a little bit of westerly starting to creep in, 10 to 20 knots, seas up to 9 feet. And then on Thursday, everybody's coming around the northwest. On the Gulf side, we've got 25 to 35, gale force 35 knots, and then seas up to 10 feet. On the Bering Sea side, all 30 knots and seas up to 12 feet. And then for the Aleutian chain, we've got generally westerlies, 20 to 25 knots, a little bit of 15 as you get further out the Aleutians, and then seas up to 10 feet on the Bering Sea side and up to 11 feet on the Pacific side. And then for Thursday, for the Aleutian chain, started getting some variable directions, but still a big range of wind, 15 to 30 knots on the Bering Sea side, and also 15 to 30 knots on the Pacific side, seas up to 9 feet there. And then for the West Coast, over the ice, we've got 20, 25 knots, but westerlies 25 knots on the southern side of the low, and seas up 13 feet near St. Matthew, 12 for the Pribilofs. And then for Thursday, we've got all northwesterlies really kicking in, 10 up to 30 knots over the ice, and then 25 knots out in the Bering, seas 9 to 11 feet. And then for the North Slope on Wednesday, we've got generally easterlies, 15 to 10 to 15 knots for the North Slope, and then 20 to 25 knots down through the Bering Strait. Might see a little bit of 30 knots down there right in the slot. And then for Thursday, we've got easterlies 10 to 25 knots along the North Slope, and then generally northerlies of 10 all the way up to 25 knots over the ice through the Bering Strait. So what do we have? We have this system 994 coming in. Target area is St. Lawrence Island. Occluded front down the western coast should start feeling the effects of this system tonight. And then tomorrow, 996, it's made it to St. Lawrence Island, fully wrapped, occluded front. But we have a secondary system now that's formed down by Sitkinak Island, 1,002 millibars, a little bit of warm air in that, so it's a rain on that side. But then as we get into Thursday, the Gulf low takes over. That's 987 millibars, fully wrapped, occluded front around that. Snow up into the interior, some mixed precipitations for the panhandle, a little bit of rain in the area of the front, but as you can see, it's cold on the backside of that. So the system is again bringing colder air in. So folks, stay safe out there. Thanks for tuning in.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.